Hi, I'm Amber, and this is a weekly roundup. So I am starting to do weekly roundups instead of monthly roundups, or wrap-ups, whatever you like to call them, because I like the idea that I will have something up once a week, and since I don't normally have more than 2 books done in a week, I will be able to talk into more detail about the books I have finished, and therefore I have a bit of a proper review for them. Because I am starting this 2 weeks into August, I will be sharing with you all the books I have read so far in this month. So 2 books were technically DNFs, 4 books were rereads, and there was only 1 book that I finished, which was for this week. So let's just jump in with the first book, which was Dear Life by Alice Munro. This is a collection of short stories, and this book made me realize that I do not like short stories because they leave me dissatisfied so much. I really don't like the feeling with how the first story was, especially where it never really felt like the story began, and we never really got much of anything out of it, and when it ended, there was like no ending. So I don't really like short stories because for the most part, even if I do feel like this ending, it still leaves me dissatisfied because I just feel like we didn't get a full story. And then specifically for this short story collection, I didn't really like the second one because the woman basically meets this guy, and 1 week later she's letting him boss her around like she's his child, and it really just pissed me off so much, and I really didn't appreciate that. I just felt like the rest of the short stories were going to be like that for this collection, and I have decided that I'm not going to try short stories again because I just don't think they are for me. So I gave Dear Life by Alice Munro 2 stars. Then I continued on with my rereads for Anne of Green Gables, the series. As you all know, I love this series so much, and I reread them at least once a year. This time, this was like my second time rereading these books. I just needed to get back into something that I loved, because I was struggling to find any books that I liked, and I was getting into reading stuff, and so I thought it was best to go and reread these because of that, and also because I was really longing to get into them again. Talking about the idea now, it's Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. This is the first book in the Outlander series, and this is about Claire, who was a nurse during World War II, and she's married to a guy named Frank, and after the war they decided to go to Scotland, because I think that was where they were married, to try to get to know each other again. And during that time, she goes back in time to 1743, where she meets Jamie and a group of Scottish warriors, and basically that's where the story begins. I really remember liking this book when I first read it, and I probably will finish this later on because I feel like I was struggling and I was just getting tired of reading basically at that time, so I feel like maybe that just affected my reading. But I have real concrete reasons for why I stopped. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's really hard to explain without kind of spoiling it. I think everybody knows that there's a romance that happens between Jamie and Claire, but it doesn't really start off as a romance. And so when they're kind of forced together, I found it really frustrating that she so easily started having sex with them. Maybe I'm wrong to think that, but it just felt weird because he was basically one of the guys that captured her. And I get kind of why she started to feel sympathy towards him, empathy towards him, but I don't think it would be enough for me to be willing to have sex with a strange guy. And for like a big huge chunk, it's all about their sexual exploits. And I just started getting really bored and tired of it only being that. The funny part is that when I did decide to pick it up, it was starting to get back into the actual story plot line, and I should have just kept on going. But I just got really pissed off at the author for making me endure 50 pages of them basically finding ways to have sex with each other. It wasn't that, there was some issues with her not being able to keep track of what day she was on. Like there was this one instance where Claire was doing something in one day, and all of that was the next day, but she was doing the same thing that she was doing the other day. And it was the same task, it was what she was doing, and then suddenly it was the next day. so she just didn't keep track of the days that well. I also felt it was a little bit too easy for her to get a part of this world. She didn't seem like such an out of place person. Another reason why I thought it was weird. But maybe I'm just being too particular about it. I wanted a good romance between Jimmy and Claire, but it really just turned into sex for me, so I don't know. But I do plan to go back and finish the rest of this book, at least so I can watch the series that came out. The book that I finished is Etta and Otto and Russell and James by Emma Hooper. This is her debut novel about Etta, who wants to walk all the way to the ocean, leaves a note for her husband, and just leaves. Etta's like, okay, I accept this, and doesn't go after her, but Russell's like, oh hell no, I'm not letting this happen, and he goes after her. James, you have to be on the pages. Let's first talk about the title. I don't like it. I don't like how there's and. It just makes the title too long and jarring, and it just doesn't flow smoothly at all. Just a side note, nobody seems to have mentioned this. Maybe I'm the only one that doesn't really like the title. I don't mind the fact that it's just their names, but I don't like that it's so jarring with the and. It's just frustrating, and like I said, it makes it too long. But let's get into the actual review. First, let's talk about the positives. The first one being, I loved her writing style. I loved how it really brought the mood and the feel of this book right there. It swept you up into the story, even though I struggled so much with so many other things that it just kept me reading from beginning to end. I like the book, her style is compared to Cormac McCarthy's style, which I don't agree with. The only thing similar between them is the fact that they didn't use quotation marks for either of their books, but whereas I felt that Cormac McCarthy was just being plain lazy, she did not come off lazy at all, and I really just loved her writing, which made it really hard for me to be so negative about everything else because I just loved her writing. The second positive, which is kind of a mix to me because of the negatives I have to say about this book, is that I did enjoy Ed and Otto's relationship, just kind of seeing how they got together. But I didn't understand Etta and Russell's relationship at all, and she brings the relationship up, but then I never felt like there was any explanation, any true understanding about it, and she would just bring certain things up out of nowhere, and then there was never full circle about it. Like with Owen, she brought him back up, but there was never any full understanding, no explanation. It was just there. And the ending of this book was even more frustrating because it left me confused. I thought that there'd be more. I kept questioning everything, and I really don't like when a book makes me confused. And I don't mind open-ended books if there's an ending to the actual story. Like, you can leave it open to possibilities, but there has to be some sort of ending to the actual book. And with this, there just didn't feel like there was an ending. Next, one of my major issues is that there's magical realism in this book, and I never really felt like it was magic for most of the book. For like 95% of this book, I was questioning the fact that this was magical realism. I couldn't suspend my disbelief because a lot of it only happened to Edith, and I thought it was in her head because of certain things that were happening. And it just really made sense that it was just her mental issues that may be bringing these things about, and I really couldn't believe it to be magic. It wasn't until the very, very end that I actually was like, oh, so this is magical realism. And then even then, that just left me with a dissatisfied taste in my mouth because I couldn't believe it. And then you kind of just suddenly jar you with the fact that supposedly it is. And it just left me even more confused because, like, this whole time I was thinking it was in her head, and I didn't really like that I wasn't, because either make it magic or don't make it magic. Have one thing or the other. And she just kind of left you going one way or the other the whole time. And I realized that I don't really like magical realism because it's very hard for me to suspend my disbelief especially because it's in our world, and therefore I just don't feel like I can be able to just kind of let myself escape into it. When it's full out fantasy, I can, because there's logic behind it. It's like it's a different world, and anything can happen in that world. Here, everything's too concrete for me already. That trying to add magic into it is just a little bit off for me, especially when the author isn't being convincing about there being magical abilities in it. It just makes it even that much harder, and that was the way it was for me with this book. This book should really get 2 stars, but I'm giving it 2.5 to 3-ish stars because I just absolutely loved her writing. And if she came out with another book, I would definitely pick it up just because of her writing. The book that I'm currently reading is In the Woods by Tana French. This is the first book in the Dublin Murder Squad, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm only about 20-ish pages in, and things are just starting to happen. I'm really enjoying her writing style, and I'm very interested to see where the mystery is going to go. I'm also going to be continuing on with the Anne of Green Gables series with Anne of Ingleside, which this focuses a little bit more on her children, and it's definitely years after Anne's House of Dreams because she has 5 kids and is expecting another one on the way. So I never really minded that she jumped time, but these next 2 books are not my absolute favorites, just because it starts to venture away from Anne, and I love these books because of Anne, so it was a little bit hard for me to be able to enjoy them as much as the first 5 books. So that's all I have to talk about today. Tell me down below if you've read any of these books, what you thought of them, do you agree or disagree, especially with the Edda book, because I would really love to hear your thoughts on that, because I feel like a lot of what I have had to say about this book isn't something that a lot of people on BookTube has to say about it. I felt like there was so much more positive things being said than negative, and that's probably why I put a lot more out of it than I should have. That being said, thank you all so much for watching. A link will be down below so you can go check out my previous video, which was my TBR for the month of August, and I will see you next time.